So let's talk about India's security situation right now. It is facing a massive challenge, and not just on one front, but on all of them. And we're not just talking about borders anymore. This is a real test of its technology, its diplomacy, and frankly, its entire place in a world that is changing faster than ever. At the very heart of this challenge is a pretty stark reality. India is effectively fighting a war on three completely different fronts. And you're going to want to stay till the end because some shocking things I am going to reveal in this video. Let's get back to the video. Each one of these fronts demands a completely different kind of strength. And here's the twist. What makes this so incredibly unique is that not all of these battles are fought with soldiers and tanks. Some are fought deep in the shadows, and others, well, they're fought right out in the open, in the court of global opinion.
Okay, so let's start with the most visible front, the one that's playing out right now, the immediate threats that are popping up in the dense jungles and along the tense borders at India's doorstep.
This is what we call the proxy war. It's a messy, complicated conflict where foreign players are actually using Indian soil to stir up trouble in the region, testing the country's resolve and its sovereignty at every single turn. A perfect and pretty recent example of this is a wild operation that went down in Mizoram. India's National Investigation Agency, the NIA, arrested 7 foreigners. And get this, among them was an American named Matthew Van Dyke, a guy who's long been on the radar of intelligence circles for possible ties to the CIA. The charge? That this group was literally using India as a launchpad, trying to smuggle combat drones to arm insurgent groups over the border in Myanmar. Now, the fact that they were arrested under the UAPA, that's a really big deal. This is an incredibly strict anti-terror law, and using it here sends a crystal clear message. India is done being the backyard for other people's proxy wars. Period. So, while that threat was being shut down on the Eastern Front, a totally different kind of chaos is boiling over on the West. In a truly shocking event, an airstrike, reportedly from the Pakistan Air Force, hit a hospital in Kabul. The death toll? Over 400 people, most of them patients in a drug treatment center.
India's reaction was swift. It was sharp. The government didn't mince words, calling it an unconscionable and cowardly act. It highlights this complete breakdown between Pakistan and the Taliban, which is creating a really dangerous power vacuum right in the region.
Okay, so reacting to these border threats is one piece of the puzzle, but India is also looking way beyond them and is now proactively trying to shape the very future of warfare itself. And this brings us to the second front, the tech war. This is a battle that's not fought with sheer numbers, but with algorithms, with data, and with artificial intelligence. It's a whole new ballgame.
Right at the center of this new strategy are something called lethal autonomous weapon systems, or LAWS. You probably know them by their more dramatic name, killer robots. And for the first time ever, India's official defense policy has endorsed using them in high-risk border areas. This is not science fiction anymore.
And this new policy is comprehensive. We're not just talking about one new weapon. It's about using AI for everything, from predicting what will happen on the battlefield to unleashing swarms of intelligent drones, all while building India's own homegrown AI models to make sure it's not dependent on anyone else. What's so crucial to understand here is the fundamental shift this represents. We're moving from traditional human-led warfare to something they're calling intelligentized warfare. And it's a pragmatic move, especially when you see that China is going all in on this very same model. The goal is simple: reduce the risk to human soldiers by making data, not just boots on the ground, the most important thing on the battlefield. All right, so from the physical borders and the digital front lines, let's zoom out now. Let's look at the global stage, where India is playing a really complex game of chess, a game of diplomacy and perception. This is the third front, the narrative war. This is a battle fought not with bullets, but with reports, with diplomacy, and with global perception. And in many ways, it's just as critical as the other two. I mean, just look at the Middle East right now. It's a tinderbox. Israel confirms it took out a top Iranian official. Iran hits back with a massive attack on the UAE. India has huge interest in this region, but its narrative, its story, has been one of careful neutrality. It has protected its strategic autonomy, refusing to get dragged into the conflict while still looking out for its own interests. A crystal clear example of this narrative war comes from the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, or USCIRF. It recently recommended sanctions against India's own intelligence agency, RAW. Well, India's response was immediate and it was firm. The The Ministry of External Affairs slammed the report, calling it motivated, biased, and distorted. So you have to ask the question, right? Why target an intelligence agency in a report about religious freedom? The timing is interesting. It comes just as Raw is becoming much more active and assertive on the global stage. This has led a lot of analysts to believe this is a strategic move by some Western lobbies to try and clip India's wings and slow down its rising influence. Okay, so when you connect all three of these fronts, the proxy war on the borders, the tech war on the battlefield, and this narrative war on the world stage, a whole new picture of India starts to come into focus. What we're seeing is a new strategic posture. It's one that absolutely refuses to tolerate foreign interference, one that embraces game-changing technology, one that asserts its independence in foreign policy, and one that actively fights back against biased global narratives. This isn't the soft state that people used to talk about, not at all. What we are witnessing here is the evolution of a power that is determined to secure its interests using both cutting-edge technology and an ironclad political will.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty profound question for the future. As these autonomous systems, these killer robots become more and more a part of our defense, how does the very definition of security, of sovereignty, and even of warfare itself actually change for a nation like India? It's something to think about. And if you want to stay on top of these kinds of updates, make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest.